Thank you all so much, as normal, for being here with us on the Outdoor Florida webinar series presented by the Office of Greenways and Trails. Today, we're really excited to have two guests from Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare with us, Afaf and Christine. And before we get into the webinar, I have a couple reminders for today's presentation. At the end of the slideshow, we'll have a question and answer portion. So please hold all your questions until then, or put them in the chat as we go, and we can read them once we finish up. Please note that our webinar today is being recorded and will be available to view on the Florida State Parks YouTube channel in the future. All right, I'd like to now introduce our speakers a little bit more. Thank you so much for being here. Christine Morse is going to be up first, and she is the fitness coordinator and a certified personal trainer at Premier Health and Fitness Center, which is an affiliate of Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. Christine has bachelor degrees in exercise science and psychology from Florida State University and a master's degree in exercise science with an emphasis on corporate wellness from Utah State University. Christine represents Premier at community events and is the exercise consultant for the TMH Metabolic Health Center, where she helps patients begin exercise regimens to lose weight successfully. She has been teaching classes and holding one-on-one meetings with patients since 2015. Christine is active with the local nonprofit Working Well Incorporated, and she also enjoys exercising, reading, traveling, spending time with her family, and running marathons, and she is currently training for her first Ironman. After we hear from Christine, we will be hearing from Afaf Qasem, who is the Director of Health Promotion at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare, where she manages the hospital's community health needs assessment to address health priorities identified by community members and stakeholders in underrepresented and under-resourced areas. She received her bachelor's degree in dietetics, her master's degree in food and nutrition sciences, and completed her dietetic internship with the Florida State University. Before coming to her current role in 2022, she was a clinical dietitian and then the Director of Quality Life Services, both with Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. In addition, Afaf was one of Sodexo's Inclusion Ambassadors for her district and is currently a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council member at TMH. She is currently pursuing her doctorate in public health from Florida A&M University and is involved with professional organizations that help spread the importance of health and wellness in the Tallahassee community. So we're really excited to have both of our super qualified speakers here talking today about health, nutrition, outdoor recreation, and fitness. And with that, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you for that introduction.
Yeah, we're excited.
Sure. All right, let me put this into slideshow. Can everyone see that okay? All right, looking good? Okay.
Yep, looks good. All right, well, I'm Christine, and I'm going to go ahead and get us started. I think I speak for Afaf and myself when I say we're really happy to be here, and we also hope that you guys have some questions for us at the end, because exercise and nutrition are very personal. And so we want to be able to respond and talk with you guys about what's on your mind. But I think just to start off, I know Anna gave us a great introduction, but because I am constantly triathlon training and I spend a lot of time outdoors, I love the parks, trails, greenways here. I'm on my bike a lot, I'm running a lot. So even though I work in a gym, I do spend a lot of my exercise time outside. So I was really excited to talk today about the benefits of exercise and being outside. And I'm hopefully going to share some science that's really exciting for you guys and gets you motivated to get out there. So we're going to start with fitness on the next slide. Yep. So fitness is what we're going to talk about first, and then nutrition. If we could go to the next slide, what we're going to start with today is the benefits of exercise. I think sometimes if you start with the positive, that can be more motivating. So when it comes to outdoor exercise, there's two things that we're looking at here. One is just the benefit of exercise, right, in general, which we know there are a lot of benefits to being physically active. This can help us manage a lot of different diseases. and reduce a lot of issues that we have with diseases. And it can actually reverse a lot of issues. Like we can see diabetes completely turn around sometimes. We can see people get completely off blood pressure medication. So it's sometimes really cool to see the benefits just from exercise alone. Obviously, we know that helps with weight loss and weight maintenance, or getting your weight to where you want it, or getting your body composition to where you want it if you want more muscle and less fat. It helps us reduce stress and sleep better. We are going to talk a bit about stress and what this does for the brain to exercise, especially outside. And it can help us reduce the risk of injury, not just reducing the risk of injury, but just moving better, right? The phrase functional fitness is really popular right now, and that's because it helps us move functionally in our daily lives, or acts of daily living, if you've heard that phrase. So we know that exercise will help us move the way we want to for longer, right? For years to come. We want to be able to function well at 95 years old and not just kind of hanging in there. So exercise helps us move in a way that is applicable to our real life. And this also can result in fewer healthcare visits, not just fewer healthcare visits, but fewer healthcare costs. We see the costs go down. We get fewer colds per year when we exercise. We see that we get fewer incidents of illness, and we recover better from illness. And so all of these things just help our body move in conjunction. So I know you guys know that exercise is good for you. I don't think that's news, but I like to go over some of the specifics sometimes so that if you see yourself in some of these issues that you want to get better, you can use exercise as a tool. A lot of times we use the phrase in the American College of Sports Medicine that exercise is medicine. And it doesn't replace all medicine, but it is another type of medicine, and it doesn't have any negative side effects. It's only good for you. And so sometimes we use exercise as an additional kind of medicine for the body. It's just very good for us. But what we're going to talk about today specifically is the benefits of being outside. So I just wanted to go over a little bit with you about some of the research out there. So one of those big studies that's out there about being outside uses the 10-minute walk. So when you are spending outside time, I've seen this done with resting studies and actively walking studies. Even sitting outside for 10 minutes can improve your cognition and your brain activity. The 10-minute walk was a study that they did where they had people generate like a brainstorming a number of ideas. And then if they went for a walk or didn't go for a walk, they'd have them try to generate ideas again. And without fail, people could generate better and more ideas after walking and after being outside. So we see this in the little picture I have in the corner here with the brain activity. This particular image was from a 20-minute study. You can see the image on the left is very little brain activity. You're just sitting. You're at rest. 20 minutes of walking, a lot of areas of the brain are lit up. You are literally a more creative person. You're literally a smarter person and a more productive person. So we see a lot of good benefit from being outside, even just sitting. And then we see even more benefit from being outside and walking. So this is also more restorative. It helps us reduce our stress levels. Being around greenery and things like that can help regulate the nervous system. And you can stay relaxed for longer when you've been walking outside. So the relaxed for longer study was people exercising indoors and then exercising outdoors. And the ones that exercised outdoors felt more restored and relaxed for a longer period of time than the ones that exercised indoors. And then also better attention and memory. So they've done memory studies, and people can literally remember things better after being outside and walking. And this improves our productivity as well. All of these things are also good for preventing things like dementia, right? So keeping our brain sharp and for reducing the risk of issues because of stress. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I do want to talk about some general exercise recommendations that you may or may not have heard. These have been around for a good long while, and I think they're pretty tried and true, but I use mostly the American College of Sports Medicine, the CDC, for general physical activity guidelines. They recommend 150 minutes of moderate activity a week, or 75 minutes of vigorous activity. And we'll talk a little bit about moderate and vigorous zones in a little bit. And then also 2 times a week for strength training. And this is one that we see a lot of people neglect. I think that some of you are good at walking outdoors or getting your cardio in, but there may be a gap in your strength training. So we will talk about that again later in the presentation. I just want to make sure we're touching on that. That's also important for our muscles. It keeps good resistance on the bones, which is good to prevent osteoporosis. And it's good for those functional movements, being able to lift things and move things without throwing out a muscle or a spasm. So these are the general activity guidelines, and we're going to get into a little more detail about how we could accomplish these, especially if we're going to be doing it outside. So let's go to our next slide. If you feel good with those guidelines, if you feel like you're going out for a walk half hour a day and doing some strength training, one of the things that you could do to take things to the next level, if you're looking to accomplish a little bit better health outcome, is to try interval training. And I like using interval training as an example of outdoor exercise because it's really easy to do with your surroundings. So the benefits of interval training include strengthening your heart and lung capacity. And this has even been shown in people with heart disease and lung disease by the American Heart Association. They still recommend interval training, short bursts of hard versus easy versus hard versus easy, even if you struggle with COPD or heart disease. And they've shown that that helps with heart and lungs. So anybody at any level can do this. It's more efficient and it takes less time. So you can do it in about half the time, a 30-minute interval training session walking versus a 60-minute slow, steady walk. We have seen studies that show that this helps with belly fat and weight loss specifically. There's a nice afterburn effect that comes with interval training where you're continuing to burn calories after the workout because of the extra oxygen you've pulled in for the workout and the extra oxygen you need in recovery. Lots of science here. Stay with me. They also have done studies that show that interval training is more enjoyable. So this shows that people get less bored, they're more entertained, the workout seems to go by faster, they are literally having a better time working out because they're interval training instead of going steady the whole time. So how could you get started with interval training and how could you do it outside? You're trying to get your 150 minutes of cardio in. I would say during your 30-minute sessions, try to get 30 seconds fast every 2 to 5 minutes. I have a little graphic here. In this graphic, that's a 30 seconds on, 1 minute off. You can do those jog or walk breaks easier, and you do not have to be running to do this. I don't know how many runners we have out there, but you can absolutely do this with walking and power walking. So for example, if you go out for a half-hour walk, let's say you go to Miccosukee Greenway and you're walking for half an hour and you decide, hey, I want a little better benefit out of my workout, or I don't have time to walk for 60 minutes, so I'm going to try to walk for 30 minutes. I'm going to do interval training because Christine told me that was good for me. So what I'm going to do is at the 5-minute mark or around the 5-minute mark, I'm going to do 30 seconds fast. I'm just going to power walk around this curve and then go back to a nice, easier pace. And you do that every few minutes and you'll start to notice your heart and lungs change a little, but you're not uncomfortable for the entire walk. You are just that little short burst, 30 seconds, you can handle anything for 30 seconds kind of feeling, and then you can go back to your normal walking pace. If you're able to jog and you don't want to jog for a long time, this is a great place to try it. 30 seconds of jogging. A lot of us can do that if we've got the knees for it, we can handle it. Little jogging here, great time to get the heart rate up in a short burst. And then go back to a pace that's manageable, get our breath back. So that on, off kind of flow. Now, the reason why I like to teach about interval training outdoors is because you can use landmarks or anything that you're listening to help you with intervals, and you don't even have to bring a watch or time yourself. So if you're not a numbers person, if you're not one that likes to look at your watch, like I'm very connected to my watch all the time as a triathlete, but if you do not like numbers or phones or watches or anything like that while you're out, you can use landmarks. So if people are walking in their neighborhood, I'll tell them just pick like 4 mailboxes down and you're going to power walk 4 mailboxes forward. And then you're going to go for maybe a dozen or so more mailboxes or however many. And then you're going to pick another landmark, that lamppost. I'm going to just power walk to that lamppost, or I'm just going to jog to this street sign. And then I'm going to go back to my regular pace. When you're out on the greenways, just find a cool tree that you like and go fast to that tree and then go back to the normal pace. If you're listening to things, I will tell people go fast for the first verse of every song, because songs are about 3 or 4 minutes long, right? So the first verse of the song, you're going to go fast. And then when it gets to the chorus, you're going to slow down for the remainder of the song. So you can use little tricks like that to give yourself just something interesting to do while you're out exercising, in addition to enjoying your surroundings and getting that nice fresh air. I just like for people to shake things up a little and try to push themselves a little bit in short ways. Now you may be wondering, how hard should you be pushing during the intervals? I'm so glad you were wondering that, because that's what we're going to talk about on the next slide. I want to talk briefly about heart rate training. So if you track your heart rate, you can use this. If you do not track your heart rate, you can absolutely just tune me out for the next 2 minutes, and you can use what we call a rate of perceived exertion scale, or an RPE scale, which is how hard does the workout feel on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, and that is just assessed. So if you're out for a walk on the Greenway and you don't want to watch and you don't want to check your heart rate or anything like that, you can just say, how hard is this walk on a scale of 1 to 10? And what we're looking for is 5, 6, 7, 8, 8.5, something around there, like 50 to 85%, right? And so we'll talk about numbers. Again, if you're not a numbers person, just take a deep breath for me. We're going to dive into some numbers and some math for a little bit. I don't want that to stress you out. I will walk you through it. And what I want to talk to you about is heart rate range for exercise. So we can calculate a good estimate, like rule of thumb heart rate for you for exercise, depending on your goals and depending on your heart issues and things like that. We can normally come up with a pretty safe range. Nothing I'm going to give you today is scary high. Like nothing I'm going to give you today is going to be dangerous on your heart. I never push people above 85% of their max for that reason. But I would recommend that you talk to your doctor if you need to discuss if you're ready for heart rate based training, or if you want to run these numbers by him or her and ask if you can use this range for exercise. And the other caveat I have with that is if you are on a blood pressure medication that is a beta blocker, like metoprolol, that's the biggest one I see. Your heart rate is going to be tamped down. So you want to make sure that you're talking with your doctor about how hard should you be working, because your heart rate's not going to give you an accurate reading. And you can be using that scale of 1 to 10 instead. So some caveats there. If you have more questions about that, I'd love to hear it. But let's talk about the math real quick. If you were looking for a max heart rate range, the quick and dirty rule of thumb is 220 minus your age. Now, we know this is not super accurate, so you can go plus or minus 10 or even 15 beats on either side of this and probably find something that works for you. But just for today, we're going to use 220 minus age. For the definition of moderate physical activity is 50 to 70% of that. And the definition of vigorous physical activity is 70 to 85% of that. So remember, we talked about 150 minutes of moderate a week versus 75 minutes of vigorous a week, right? So you can, if you're going to do just 75 minutes a week, you can be in that range. If you're going to do 150, you need to be in the moderate range. So I use the example of a 70-year-old. I don't know what our average listener age is right now, but 70 is an easy number to work with, and I see it a lot at Premier. The max heart rate would be 150. And then you take 50% of that to 75% of that to give you your range. So 0.5 times 150 or 0.7 times 150 gives us a range of 75 to 105 beats per minute. Again, if you're not a math person, just take 0.5 times your number or 0.7 times your number, and that gives you your range. So 75 to 105, very conservative heart rate for a 75-year-old or a 70-year-old for exercise. Some of that they may be hitting at resting, right? But getting up to about 105 for moderate activity for 150 minutes a week. If they were pushing for the vigorous intensity, let's say they are someone who can go jogging or they can push a little bit more, they could take 0.7 to 0.85. This is also the range I use for weight loss generally, a little bit more intense. You take that number times your 150 max, and you get a range of 105 to 127.5. Again, that's not dangerously high to have a 70-year-old in the 120s for their heart rate. If you know anything about heart rate, you'll know that's pretty comfortable. And then of course, making sure that you're factoring in your heart may be a little different. Hearts are all different. So for those of you that wear smartwatches or occasionally check your heart rate, or if you've got a little pulse ox at home that you can stick in your pocket when you're out for a walk, these are great tools to use for intensity, to see if you're exercising enough or hitting your recommendations, even while you're outside and not on a treadmill with heart rate sensors on it. So I just wanted to go over some of the mechanics of that in case some of you are interested in kind of nailing that intensity for the goal of improved heart health, improved lung health, weight loss, and so on. Okay, that's cardio in a nutshell. The last thing we're going to talk about before I hand it over to Afaf is strength training. So strength training, as I promised, I will go over with you because it's kind of foreign territory for a lot of people. And I just want to show you that it can be quite easy, and you can also even do it outside. I think a lot of times we picture a gym membership or this huge set of equipment or weights that is just kind of beyond us. So I want to just go over some basics, just 101 real quick on strength training. Again, some of you may be already doing this, but hopefully you can be thinking of a way to maybe get outside on a nice day and kind of multitask, get that stress reduction by being out in nature, but also get that muscle strength training while you're outside. So the goal here and the recommendation that we talked about earlier is twice a week per muscle group. The easiest way to split that is to think about arms, legs, and core. So on this slide, I've said upper body, lower body, and core. When we talk about upper body, we mean like chest and upper back and arms, biceps, triceps, and shoulders. And so think about ways that you can push and pull things. Think about ways you can push things overhead. Go very light if you're going overhead and you're a little bit older. You want to make sure that you're being conscious of your neck and things like that. And your spine. But you do need to move in a lot of different ways. Exercise is very much use it or lose it. And so any direction that you want to move in the future, you need to be practicing moving in the future, either with mobility, like moving, stretching kind of things, or strength training. So the best definition that I've come up with for a total body workout, if you're going to do total body twice a week, is to do 3 to 5 exercises for the arms or upper body, 3 to 5 exercises for the legs, and 3 to 5 exercises for the core. That's 9 to 15 different things in all different directions, right? Variety is key here. And doing about 3 sets of 10, about as heavy as you can stand it. And that's one of the keys to good strength training, is challenging yourself. A lot of people will pick up little 2-pound weights and they'll move them around, but they could do 100 of those. And that does not develop muscle very well. It does not help us preserve muscle as we age, or if we're postmenopause, or if our testosterone's dropping. We need to really be challenging ourselves with the resistance. This is going to be personal to you, but you want to make sure that it's challenging, where by maybe rep 7 or 8, you're really feeling a good burn in the right area, but you can still get to 10 with perfect form. So I like to call this the Goldilocks principle, right? We don't want something that's too heavy that we cannot get to 10, and we don't want something that's too light, like I could do this all day. We want something that is just right for 3 sets of 10, or however many sets and reps you're doing. I don't actually care how many sets and reps you're doing, as long as it is challenging and perfect for that set, right? We can talk about this more if you've got questions, but what I wanted to wrap up with is how to take this outside. So we can use body weight exercises. There are so many good ones. If you've never explored that, there's so many things you can do without equipment. You can also invest in some small equipment, or most of us actually have small equipment gathering dust somewhere in our house, so go look for it. You can look for resistance bands, little dumbbells, hopefully heavier dumbbells, right? Because we're going to challenge ourselves, or a medicine ball or something small. Some people even have like a stability ball, like a big inflatable ball they'll bring outside. Bring a yoga mat out there, do some Pilates. There are so many great different ways to get your resistance training or your strength training done from home or outside. And believe me, as someone who has brought a yoga mat outside before to de-stress, or someone that's brought, dumbbells out there to get a de-stressing strength training workout, it is so great. It's just going to rock your world if you're not into the gym scene, which I completely respect. So I have given you guys a couple of pointers if you wanted to follow along with someone online. One of them, there's a few channels that I follow on YouTube, and I recommend to our bariatric patients at TMH. Yes to Next is very gentle. I think it's a mother-daughter combo, and sometimes the mother is seated and then the daughter is standing. It's very introductory. They have strength and cardio videos on their channel. Something that I would consider intermediate or beginner, if you don't have a lot of aches and pains, would be Juice and Toya on YouTube. You can search for these channels just with the little search icon. They would have what I would consider intermediate strength and cardio. If you're pretty comfortable holding onto a pair of dumbbells, you can do their videos. They're great. They're fantastic. And they sometimes will show you modifications because there's 2 of them in the video. And then Yoga with Adriene, I adore. And some of you may know her channel already because she's huge. I've been working on her yoga videos for like 10 years. I love her stuff so much. It's great, like introductory yoga if you wanted to just take a mat out there and do a 20-minute Yoga with Adriene beginner video. And then there's one channel I recommend on Instagram, and that's Nat Wilson Fitness. There are so many good fitness influencers out there and things that you can search. But what I like about Nat Wilson Fitness is when you're scrolling, her thumbnails are very easy to see. She labels them. She'll tell you which ones are arms. She'll tell you which ones are glutes. She'll tell you which ones are core, no equipment. She is so great at describing really quick at a glance. So you could just pull up a couple of her videos with your equipment or no equipment and knock out a video. Okay, that is, I believe, 20 minutes on the nose. I want to make sure I give Afaf enough time to talk and also let you guys ask questions at the end. So thank you so much for your attention about fitness. I want to pass the torch over to Afaf.
Forgot I was on mute. Thank you, Christine. That was super helpful. I feel like I definitely learned a lot that I need to take away that I didn't know before. So thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to be talking about nutrition, especially nutrition to complement some of the things that Christine talked about. But first thing we're going to go over is the basics. If you can go to the next slide. So what are the basics? You may or may not know, but there are 5 food groups. fruits, grains, vegetables, protein, and dairy. And the idea is that we're getting these type of foods at each meal. And it doesn't mean that you have to. I know this photo is we have all these foods at one meal, and that is definitely a goal. But I think I tell a lot of people it's okay if you have 3 out of 5. It's okay if you're breaking it up and getting the other 2 at a snack. This is reality of the world we live in. Trying to perfect our plate each time sometimes isn't reasonable. So just aim for getting as much as you can from the 5 food groups. So proteins, obviously, we want to focus on lean meats, looking at red meat and saying, maybe I should only be having this once or twice a week instead of, 3 and 4, and really trying to incorporate more fish 2 and 3 times a week. I think as Americans, we forget about fish and how nutritious it is. And then, of course, chicken. That's something that I think is a staple in our diets, regardless. For grains, whole grains are really important, trying to make at least half your grains whole. So every time you have a grain, let's say you have 4 grains a day, making at least 2 of them whole grain. We see a lot of benefit from fiber, helping with cholesterol, diabetes control. So it's really important we try to get as much fiber as we can. And then making sure you look at the label to do so. So sometimes we purchase foods and we want to know if it's whole grain, especially cereals. Turn around the box, look at the food label. If the first ingredient says whole grain, then you got yourself some fiber. Dairy is a great source of calcium rich food. It's a great source of that. So we want to make sure we incorporate dairy in our diet. Some of us are lactose intolerant, so there's definitely alternatives to that. So just remember that dairy is not bad for you. I think there's a lot of myths out there that it is. But of course, if you have a condition or an intolerance or a reason why you don't want to consume dairy, then that is definitely something you're entitled to. But if you were to ask a dietitian, they're not going to tell you dairy is bad for you. And then fruits and vegetables. And I talk about these so much because I think a lot of times we definitely discredit fruits and vegetables. We discredit what the color can do to our body. So thinking about the importance of eating like a rainbow. I know we tell kids that all the time, like eat like it's the rainbow, but it's because these fruits or vegetables that the actual thing that gives a fruit or vegetable color is called phytonutrients or phytochemicals, and these really help protect. They protect the fruit or vegetable from like fungus and bacteria. And weather, to withstand weather conditions. But if it does that for the fruit or vegetable, what do you think it does for you, right? So it protects us from heart disease and cancer and high blood pressure. And so we know fruits and vegetables can help prevent those chronic conditions. So we want to consume them. A lot of times we're not seeing Americans consume at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. And a serving might be a small apple or a cup of leafy greens or half a cup of cooked vegetables. You would think it's something easier to find. It's not. It's something we're struggling with as Americans. So I encourage you to definitely try to aim to eat more fruits and vegetables. Is there one that I missed? I think I got them all. Okay, so portion sizes. People tell me all the time, well, I don't know how much to eat. I struggle with portions. I'm tired of measuring, and I am with you on that. Measuring is not always fun. If you've mastered it, that's amazing. A lot of times we tell people to gauge the portion based off their hands. So 2 hands together is 2 cups, and it's what we want to consume in fruits and vegetables. A fist is a cup of rice. Palm of your hand is the actual size of protein. And I know that you all are like, I definitely eat more than that. We do. So just keeping in mind that when we say a portion of protein or a portion of lean meat would be the palm of your hand. A fist, again, is a cup of fruit, which would be a serving, actually 2 servings, and then 1 tablespoon of oil would be like the size of your thumb. So that could be like peanut butter or an oil or margarine that you're putting on your food. So next, I'm going to be talking about the nutrition facts label. I can talk all day long about the nutrition facts label, so we're not going to do that, obviously, and I'm going to keep it really short and brief. But we do want to pay attention to a couple things when we're looking at the label. I think a lot of people ask me, what do I look at? What I've circled here is very general. What I would say is you have to really understand what your needs are. So let's say I have high blood pressure. Well, then I'm going to focus on sodium. If I had diabetes, I'm going to focus on total carbohydrates. If I had high cholesterol, then I'm going to focus on saturated fat. So I think it's okay to say, you know, I don't have to pay attention to everything. I can goal set. I can look at my health and say, what is the most important thing to me today? And it might be different tomorrow. But I think personally, the nutrition facts label oftentimes overwhelms a lot of people and overwhelms me sometimes. So the couple things I circled are the serving size. Obviously, sometimes we pick up a can of corn and we may eat the whole thing. Just know that there is a serving. So sometimes it's half the can and then we end up eating the whole can. So you have to double the numbers. Um, Reading the calories, again, that's from based off the serving size, just knowing how much that you're eating. I also tell people it's okay to not focus so much on the calories and look at the nutrient composition. So look at what kind of foods are actually in the item, right? Because, you know, eating a bag of chips, that's 300 calories, and eating fruit or fruit and vegetables, that's 300 calories. It's very different, right? So I think just paying attention to the nutrient composition is also very important. So limiting saturated fat, that's one we have linked to heart disease. So we talk about this a lot, and we don't say to never consume, we say to limit. The one we say to never consume is going to be the trans fat, which you find in like baked goods and things that are fried and packaged. And then of course, aiming for lower sodium and lower sugar. So again, go back to your goal, and it's okay to just focus on one of these if you have a priority area. And then last, looking at fiber. For Americans, we aim 25 to 30 grams of fiber, and we are not getting this. So this can come from fruits and vegetables, and this can also come from processed food, just paying attention to the fiber. A good source of fiber for a serving on a package could be 5 or more. And that's something you can actually like count and say, okay, this has some fiber in it. Usually under 5, as we would say, it's not significant. But then again, if you have multiple servings of that food, then you can obviously add more to the amount of fiber you consume from that package. So that's the general overview of the nutrition facts label. Again, there's so much more detail I can go into. Just remember what your priorities are and try to read the label based on that. So Christine talked a lot about being outdoors, so we felt that it was appropriate to talk about on-the-go snack ideas. And of course, we talk about the ones that can last longer outside. If you're going to take something with you that's, you know, needs a refrigerator, definitely either take it with ice in a cooler or just, you know, follow the rule. If it's in hot heat, especially in Florida, I would say, I mean, under an hour, you want to be able to consume that food. But we put out a list here of foods that we think you can take with you that might be able to last on your outdoor trip. Fruit, and what I did here is I combined a carbohydrate with a protein, and that's really important. And we talk about that a lot with diabetes, but it's not just for people with diabetes. It helps maintain your energy levels while you're out, and also helps make sure your blood sugars stay at a maintainable range, in a maintainable range. So fruit and nuts, so this could be an apple or a pear with a handful of almonds. A peanut butter sandwich, just, you know, 2 pieces of whole grain toast with the peanut butter, or really any kind of butter of your choice. So it could be like a almond butter or cashew butter, whatever you actually enjoy. For peanut butters, just be aware that there are a lot of peanut butters that are processed with the hydrogenated oils, which is trans fat. So try to find one that doesn't have that. And you'll see it'll say trans fat 0, but if you see it in the ingredients, it says hydrogenated vegetable oil or partially hydrogenated, then you kind of want to avoid that one. And it doesn't mean like, oh my gosh, if I eat it, it's terrible. But I would say it's our job to educate you on the importance of eliminating those trans fats, which we know are linked to heart disease. Granola with fruit. So we talk about granola sometimes is super high in sugar, though these days I feel like there's a lot of brands that came out that really have put a lot of protein in their granola. So look for the ones that have at least 10 grams. That is a good source of a snack, especially if you're just going to do it without any protein. If you're going to do it with like a yogurt, let's say you went back home and were going to eat a yogurt with granola, then you don't have to worry as much about getting in the protein because it'll come from the yogurt. So just turn over the label and look at the protein content of different granolas, and also take a look at the sugar content because sometimes they're pretty high in sugar. Energy bites, this is something you can make and take with you. So you just take some almond butter, or again, it could be peanut butter or cashew butter. some oats, honey, flaxseed, chocolate chips, and you roll it into a ball or a couple of balls and you take those with you. They have a good amount of protein, good amount of carbs, and also they'd be a good fulfilling snack on the go. Um, I I think I missed my granola bar. Yes, I skipped one. I thought I did. So protein bars, a lot of protein bars, same thing. They either have like no carbs in them, with lots and lots of protein, or lots and lots of carbs with no protein. So really paying attention to that ratio 1 to 2. So if let's say it has 30 grams of carbs, trying to aim for maybe half of that. So 15 grams would be coming from protein as well. So that ratio is important. I think a lot of protein bars, there's a lot of hype around them, but there's some that are really healthy and nutritious that don't have tons of ingredients in them. And really, when you're on the go, these are super, super helpful when you're going, and not just for like outdoors. I think when you have a busy day, or like you don't have time to make breakfast, or you really want a snack and you're at work and you don't have a lot of time to prep something, these are great. So just again, turn over the package, read the label, take a look at how much carbs to protein is in that protein bar. Hydration, we always want to make sure that when we're outdoors or even throughout the day that we're consuming enough hydration. This is based off of the recommendation for what you should have, not for high intensity exercise. This is just general recommendation. How much water should I be drinking in a day? This also includes the water that would be coming from food. So for men, it's seven 16-ounce water bottles. But again, it would be, your fruits and vegetables have water in them, any coffee you drink, any sodas. If you had a soup that day, all of that is considered fluid as well. And then for women, 5 16-ounce water bottles. So sports drinks can be an additional supplement to water. They can help replace salt and minerals. So if you are sweating a lot, then it's also a good thing to replenish using a sports drink. Sometimes people with diabetes might ask me, well, I have diabetes, I don't want to consume the Gatorade that had tons of sugar in it. I agree. So there's, some Gatorades that have half the amount of sugar, and there's some that have no sugar. So looking at sports drinks that don't have any sugar in them would be a good option for somebody with diabetes. If you don't, then it's fine to consume in moderation, especially whenever it's a hot day and that you're going to be sweating a lot. Signs of dehydration, it's really important to pay attention. These are like when you're already super far into dehydration. So headaches, urine color changes, constipation, muscle cramps, dry mouth, sleepiness, nausea, and vomiting. I would say, without doing testing, if you were like, how do I know if I'm hydrated? The best thing to look at is going to be, oh, can you go to the next slide? Sorry. The best thing to pay attention to, I think there's not supposed to be 2 slides in here. Sorry, go back. You can go back one more. One more forward. That, okay. So this one, I probably just added a note in here about the water consumption. So these recommendations cover fluids from water, other beverages, and food. But just to give you a general understanding, about 20% of daily fluid intake usually comes from food, and the rest is from drinks. But that's because I was telling you the total amount of water to be consumed in a day from food and water. So yeah, one of those slides can be omitted, but we can keep this one. The next one, I just wanted to talk about, like, how do I know when I'm on the go? Oh, that rhymes. If I'm hydrated or not. You can easily look at your urine color. So 1, 2, and 3, we would say is a healthy urine color. And then under the red line would be something we would consider as dehydration. So making sure you need to drink more water. So this is an easy way. Some people say, oh, I'm going to print this and put it on top of my toilet. So, and of course, it's after the urine is already in the toilet. Some people have asked me something like, oh, am I supposed to be testing this outside? No, you can just look at the color of the urine in the toilet. And if it matches 1, 2, and 3, then you're fairly hydrated. Under that, then you need to definitely drink more water and pay attention to your hydration status. Most of us know if we're hydrated based off of the amount of water we drink in a day, but some of us get so busy and forget. So this is a good reminder. Okay, and that concludes my part of the presentation. I think we did perfect timing to make sure we answer your questions. And like Christine said at the beginning, I really hope you guys have questions, because a lot of what we provided is not personal and individualized, but obviously it's general recommendations. We encourage you to speak to your healthcare provider about nutrition and about exercise, especially if you have limitations due to chronic conditions and you need to look into further, like your heart rate, what Christine was saying about the heart rate, definitely looking into even some of the foods I talked about. Some people have limited amounts of protein they can consume because of chronic conditions. So just make sure you talk to your healthcare provider about nutrition and exercise. And obviously there are dietitians and exercise physiologists that are out there that can help you as well.
Great. Thank you so much to both of you, Christine and Afaf, for all that great information. And as mentioned, feel free to add anything into the chat for questions. We do have a couple to get started here with. This was a little bit mentioned by Christine, some of those virtual resources, those YouTube accounts and Instagrams. But for people who aren't local to Tallahassee, is there any resources through TMH or Premier that are available online, whether that's nutrition or exercise, that people can access?
Yes, I'll go ahead and start. And I know Afaf has resources for us as well. There are so many virtual and live opportunities to get together with people, to exercise outside or to follow along with an instructor. Premier Health and Fitness has a YouTube channel. We filmed a lot of our instructors during COVID, and some of them even filmed outside. And so if you'd like to follow along with them, you can. Premier Health and Fitness, that's the name. Premier Health and Fitness Center, I think, is the name of our YouTube channel. We also have a lot of walking organizations and things like that. So Gulf Winds Track Club, Gulf Winds Tri Club, if you want to come do triathlons with me. And Move Tallahassee often does like pop-up walks. CHP does Walk with a Doc at Cascades once a month. There are so many good opportunities to just kind of network with people through outdoor exercise. So those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. But I know there's a bunch of ways to connect with people in the community. We have a pretty active community, all things considered, and we have a lot of good trails and parks and things. So we have people that get out there all the time regularly.
For nutrition, we don't have a YouTube channel. I mean, we do have on our website, we definitely have some resources on the TMH website under Eat Healthy, but I would definitely go to like our government sources like choosemyplate.gov. And I would also go to eatright.org, which is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics website. Both of those have tons of information on nutrition, and in some ways can be personalized because you can put in, there's like charts for like your age, your gender, and some other information they ask you to kind of help you understand how many servings of foods you should be eating, what kind of nutrients you should be getting at your age. So there are some resources that might be slightly personalized, but obviously the most personalization you're going to get is if you speak to an actual dietitian, which if you are interested, eatright.org does have that resource. You just go to find an expert in your area and you just search that and you can find a dietitian that can either see you virtually or provides or has a practice in your area that you live in.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Great answers. The next question here is, with New Year's coming up, do you have any advice to stick to exercise or nutrition goals?
I can start with this one. I get this question a lot around the holidays, and I think what's really important is that you give yourself some grace. I think a lot of times, people are on a really good track, and then the holidays come, and they're like, "Oh, whatever! Like it's the holidays, and I'm just going to go crazy, right?" And consume lots and lots of stuff. I think the goal here is moderation and understanding that it's okay to have that piece of pie. What becomes not okay is maybe if you have 2 and 3. So one thing that I tell people that's super helpful is whenever you go to the family dinners or you're going out to eat, it's to try not to wait so long before eating and going to that family dinner. So let's say you're going to dinner at 6 and it's 12 and you go with nothing till 6 o'clock. I don't think you're going to be paying attention to your hunger and fullness cues. And that's very normal and understanding. You're just too hungry to care. So I tell people, try to eat a snack 2 or 3 hours before. You don't have to eat a whole meal, but a snack. And that way you're able to make a more sound decision when you're there, because there's always so many options. And oftentimes, I don't know if it is like this at your house, but or your houses is that the food stays out, which there is a food safety concern with that, but the food stays out for a while. So you end up going back and forth. And then again, the moderation's like outside the window. And the other thing we do is we start to pile on a lot on our plate, even when we don't know that we even like it. So what I tell people is maybe the first round is that you're taking small amounts and tasting what you like. And then the foods you like to go back and eat those instead of just filling your plate. And then you're like, oh, I don't want to throw this away. I'll just eat it. It's something we all do. So some of those practices I think help with, trying to stay on track around the holiday, but also again, going back to giving yourself grace and reminding yourself like it's okay to have these foods sometimes. And also not feeling guilty afterwards. I think that's really important because that creates that cycle of behavior where you're like, you know what? Oh, well, I'm just going to now just eat another piece since I ate one piece. And that's actually not the case. Eating the one piece is okay. It's whenever you go back, it might make you feel worse, and actually might make you feel more sick. So I think that's something to take into consideration. But also remember, like that whole eating before, snacking before really does help whenever you're going out, enjoying time with family.
Yeah, and I'll jump on about the New Year's resolutions thing because that's the biggest cliche in the book for gyms is the New Year's resolution. I think when it comes to dietary changes and exercise changes, if in going into the new year, if you're setting goals, which I would use the term goals instead of resolutions, because goals have a progress, like how you're going to accomplish them. The key here is sustainability and consistency. So you need something that's sustainable and you need something that you can be consistent about. So a lot of times we see, I kid you not, people in the gym to the point where we have to call an ambulance because they have gone so hard at the beginning of the year and been starving themselves, crash dieting, coming and working out way harder than they have for years sometimes, and they get dizzy and they pass out or they do something just really foolish. And so we always have to keep an eye out for people that are going too hard in both nutrition and exercise. When I tell people, especially my weight loss patients who are trying to lose weight and think they have to work out 4 hours a day is, first of all, do you see yourself doing this the same way in 5 years? If you don't see yourself eating the same or exercising the same in 5 years, 10 years, it is probably not sustainable. And you need to ask yourself why. There are times where you might train a little harder, like for an event, for example, and you may not see yourself doing the same exact workout in 30 years, but you need to be asking yourself if you could still exercise at the same amount, at the same level, at the same intensity for you over the years. And so when it comes, I tell people this should be as physical activity, exercise in your life should be as normal and natural as brushing your teeth or taking a shower. I don't normally have to remind my clients to brush their teeth or take a shower. Exercise should be the same way. It's not weird. I know it seems weird, people that go to the gym and work out regularly, but it's really not weird. It's a normal part of your life. And once you've normalized it and made it not that big of a deal, you can start working on those little goals, little changes that will get you to your end goal. But it needs to be a very normal, I almost call it like a hygiene for the body, where you're just keeping the insides as clean as the outsides and strong and functional. So we want it to be very sustainable. I could keep this up for years and very consistent where, maybe you miss a workout, like Afaf saying one piece of pie kind of thing, but you get back on track and you get to the next workout. I think James Clear in Atomic Habits says never skip a second workout. So you can skip one, but not the second one, right? Because that's where we fall off the wagon, is it's that second mistake, right? Or that second lost habit that we lose track of. So very normalized, and hey, a workout went by the wayside. Okay, well, I've got one planned in 48 hours. So I'm going to just pick up where I left off. Just like we don't crash diet before a big party, we don't crash exercise after a big party, right? We don't go in and do like 4 times the amount that we would have done. So just get it right back on track. And I promise you, will see better results from that than trying to do extremes.
And one thing just to add to what Christine said is oftentimes with what the recommendation she just gave is people don't see instant results, and that is what isn't satisfying to them. And oftentimes what I tell people to encourage them is if the goal ends up taking longer, it just means you're going to last longer doing it. So I think it's important to realize that like whenever we see like instant, let's say it's weight loss, instant, it happens really fast. Oftentimes it isn't in a healthy way. They end up losing water weight or protein or muscle mass, and that isn't the goal, right? So, but to what society has done to us is told us that, oh, if we drop weight, that's a good thing as fast as we can, and it's really not. So going back to what Christine said about sustainable, consistent, longer term, that is how we should be goal setting instead of saying it's a New Year's resolution and we're going to go hard or go home. It's really not the case. And we really need to take a step back, realize what our goals are, and look for those long-term benefits, because that's what's going to help us in the end with preventing those chronic conditions.
Great. Thank you so much. Great tips. from both of you there, especially like the snacking before the holiday dinner. I wouldn't have thought of that. It's a good relatable tip I think a lot of us can take home. Next question is about fish oil and flaxseed and benefits of those, or maybe not benefits.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if the question is in reference to a supplement or the actual like food. So we talk a lot about, fish oil and flaxseed oil providing those omega-3 fatty acids. What does that do? That's that protective effect against heart disease, which is what we do want, which comes from, salmon, almonds, olive oil, flaxseed. A lot of nuts and seeds actually have a good amount. So I always tell people to consume them from food, right? That would be the most beneficial source. But sometimes providers, so I can't tell you to take it or not to take it. I always tell people to talk to their provider about any supplementation. Sometimes providers, cardiologists will put their patients on omega-3 or flaxseed or fish oil because they want them on that protective effect from heart disease, right? So either they have high cholesterol, they've had something happen, so they might put them on it. But again, that's under the supervision of a doctor. So that would be my recommendation, is that if you're going to start a supplement, to talk to your provider about it.
Great, thank you. Another nutrition question here. Do you have a recommendation for nuts that are healthier for, taking outside when you're exercising?
I think all nuts are great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think all nuts are great. I think what ends up happening is we consume a lot of peanuts as Americans. So the ratio of the fats, I don't want to call them, I hate to call them good and bad, but when you talk about the saturated and unsaturated, we find almonds, walnuts are pretty high in the unsaturated. So we start to recommend those more often. And of course, seeds as well. So people do things like chia seeds and flax seeds, but ground flaxseed because the whole will just pass through. So just making sure that if you're going to try to do a mixture of them, I wouldn't say there's one specific nut.
Okay, great. Well, we are getting to the end of our webinar here, so I think we're going to go ahead and finish up with our questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, I just want to thank you both again so much for sharing your time with us today and all of your expert knowledge on this topic. A lot of great take-homes that I think are going to be really applicable to the people that watch our webinar series. If you're not already subscribed to our webinar and you're watching today or watching our recording, head to our website, floridadep.gov/OGT, where you can sign up for all of our webinars, including next month, where we'll be talking about bicycle and pedestrian safety. And if you have any questions or feedback or anything that you want to ask our lovely speakers today, feel free to reach out to us at Office of Greenways and Trails at floridadep.gov. And we will get back with you as soon as we can. Thank you all so much for joining, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thanks for having us.